Testing, 1, 2. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the IT subcommittee.
Yay.
Okay. Councillor DeRose is very excited. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to look back over the past year's achievements and take a look forward to the year ahead. 2015 was an exciting one for the IT committee. We reviewed two budgets, one in February and the other in December. In each case, I was pleased to see our city investing to renew our IT infrastructure in order to reliably support the digital services our residents depend upon. We helped to set strategic initiatives for the term of council, including the transformation and realignment of our IT department headed by our new CIO, Charles Duffett, the replacement of the class registration system to significantly improve client experience, and establishing new ways to integrate mobile devices and the power of digital in service delivery. Also, continuing the open data project to release useful data sets to the public. Last year, we celebrated significant achievements by our staff. The city's free public Wi-Fi and city facilities project was recognized by both the Municipal Information Systems Association of Canada and by the annual GTEC conference. The Ottawa.ca project team was also recognized at the annual GTEC conference. These awards are a clear recognition of the innovation and excellence taking place at the City of Ottawa. Last year, we expanded the services accessible through My Service Ottawa, an online account that allows residents to securely access multiple city services and information in one place. Over 55,000 My Service Ottawa accounts have been created so far, allowing residents to access city services such as being able to view, print, and pay property tax and water bills, obtain the status of a resident's service requests, managing City of Ottawa e-subscriptions, viewing the solid waste collection calendar and signing up for reminders, and managing pet licenses through the new pet registration portal. When the city adds new digital services, our residents are quick to use them. Over 1,000 new pet registrations were generated through the pet registration portal since January, a 50% increase over the same period last year. Residents want the flexibility and convenience that digital services provide, and they use these tools when the city provides them. So, where are we going from here? Our city will continue to protect and manage our core IT services while renewing and modernizing our city's IT infrastructure. We will continue to release public data through our open data project for app developers and analysts to explore and use. We will review our city's data security and how our data is managed and stored at the city. We will introduce new online services to cut red tape and help entrepreneurs start businesses in Ottawa. In particular, this year the city will be introducing a new permit and licensing application tool targeting the restaurant industry. We will leverage current and future business processes, data, and technology to develop a digital services strategy that will meet our clients' expectations for digital interaction with the city. We have a lot to do this year, so without further ado, we will begin. So on the agenda today, do we have any declarations of interest? No. Okay. Confirmation minutes of December 4th. Carried. Okay. And I guess first item would be smart cities. Mr. Bashir. Okay. All right. Sorry, we should do a status update first.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, which one are you doing? Status update on Smart City? Okay. So I'll introduce Smart City. We've been working a great deal with Hydro Ottawa. And we have today with us Mark Fernandez, who's the CIO of Hydro Ottawa. And they've been really spearheading Smart City, and if it wasn't for them, actually, we probably wouldn't be looking at it today. Hydro saw the benefit of a smart grid, which is an old presentation all in itself, but the benefits are far-reaching for the city. So we're working with Mark and his team to see what they're doing and how we can improve for the city. We're going to go through a presentation to define, next one. Okay, thank you. The table of contents, defining smart city, physical infrastructure, some soft infrastructure, so to explain some of these things of what they are and how we see things moving forward. Saad Bashir from Economic Development, of course, has been spearheading a lot of the business side of this and for the city, and recognizes, of course, the importance of this to the city. So I'm going to let Saad take you forward with the presentation.
Thank you, Charles. Good morning, councillors. The structure of the presentation, councillors, is such that before we go into the nitty-gritty details of what smart city is, it's probably a good idea to just be on the same page on what does this phrase mean. And this phrase means different things to different people. Before we can understand what smart city is, a couple of terms that probably you're already familiar with: Internet of Things. And you'll often see this term IoT talked about in the context of smart city, and this is basically the idea that everything that we have around us, from our fridge to the projector to this mic to this binder, everything should have an IP address and everything should be connected to the internet. And smart device, which is another term, and that is all about everything that becomes connected to the internet now has the ability to start talking with other devices that are out there. So those two definitions, if we can keep in mind. There are many definitions of the phrase smart city. The one that I'm choosing to put in front of you is the one where we talk about a world, talk about a context where smart devices are talking to each other. And the best way to illustrate the definition is probably to talk about a couple of examples. And my favorite one is from South Korea, where they have a garbage can which speaks with the garbage truck and says, "Don't come and pick me up today because I'm only half full." Another example is the sprinkler systems will, before they turn on for a municipality, will first go to the weather network and see if it's going to rain in the next 30 minutes, 60 minutes. And if the weather is going to show that, then they're not going to turn on. And so those are the kinds of applications that can be enabled if you have smart devices across your system. The other thing that is worth mentioning is many folks confuse smart city with sustainable city, and goes without saying that sustainable city is all about eco-friendliness, energy efficient systems, which is very different from smart city. Frost and Sullivan, which is a bit of a thought leader in this field, has said that any municipality that says that you are a smart city or on the path of a smart city, you must have at least 5 of these 8 parameters that you are pursuing for your organization. And I won't go through each one of them, but many of them are self-explanatory. Another favorite of mine is that City of Ottawa is a large city geography-wise. There are now pilots going on where holographic images of municipal workers are going to be providing services and talking with residents just because of the sheer size of the city. And so those types of applications also, which would come under smart governance and smart education, would only be possible if you had smart devices. There are 2 things that you need in order to get on the path of a smart city. One, of course, is you need physical infrastructure. And here it's really important to note that what used to be called broadband is no longer really broadband. You know, many years ago, my colleague Chris Cope, who is sitting behind us, was part of the Rural Broadband Initiative, which at that time was going to change the lives of everybody. But that rural broadband speed wouldn't be considered broadband anymore. That was maybe 1 megabits per second. So the definition of broadband is changing as the technology evolves. And currently, broadband is more classified as gigabit speeds. And to put that into context, that is going to be about 100 times faster than what one might get, ordinarily speaking, in Ottawa. And people are even talking about 10 gigabyte, which is going to be 1,000 times faster. So the physical infrastructure is really what actually brings the backbone of the system. But physical, and the next slide actually is just to show you some of the existing speeds that we see when we do some of the things on the internet. And if you are, working on web conferences, then you're talking about already 10 megabits per second, and that can all add up for a home, for an organization. And we'll talk about how the penetration of smart devices that are consuming these speeds is happening in the world. If you go to the next slide, that talks about different models that are out there that different municipalities are employing in order to put the fiber infrastructure around their geography. And there are 3 ways in which we have typically seen municipalities actually do that. One is you use the hydro poles, the other one is you use underground conduits. And another interesting example that we saw, I think this one is from Calgary, which is just being evaluated, is using your storm sewage network, because that is going to connect every house and business as well. And who owns these fiber networks, because they are pretty expensive? Different models again. In Vancouver, we're talking about TELUS. In Calgary, we're talking about the city of Calgary wanting to do their own municipal fiber network. And we'll talk about some of those examples as we go through the slide deck. But you can see that there is no one model. Because it's such a relatively new field, many cities are experimenting on what's working best for them. Physical infrastructure is not sufficient on its own. And when we have spoken with a few experts in this field, one of the things that they're saying is common amongst all the cities who are on the leading edge of this subject is that they have a very dedicated focus at the municipal level. And so that is the soft infrastructure that you need to have municipal leadership, you need to have dedicated staff, and you need to have the private sector and the post-secondary institutions thoroughly involved in this. And again, that's something that we will talk about as we go forward with this presentation. So before we talk about what's happening in Ottawa, maybe we should talk about what's happening around the world. And it's one of those fields, smart city is, where everybody is claiming that they're the world's leading smart city. And there is rankings of every kind. I've put 2 rankings that are sort of believable. Barcelona appears in most of them. New York seems to appear in many of them. Seoul, South Korea, I mentioned one of their examples. And so you can see that the cities that are actually adapting smart city principles are not the unknowns of this world. They are the leading capitals, the leading business centers. And so, one of the motivations we have in economic development is that we want to make sure that we also behave like a G7 capital, and we do all the things that are going to set us apart from the competition. This is an interesting slide. It took 125 years to reach 1 billion landline users. It took less than 5 years to get the same number for smartphones. And all that to say that the rate at which data is being consumed is increasing at an exponential rate. I did not know what an exabyte was until I saw this slide. And an exabyte is 1 billion gigabytes. And basically that slide is saying that the demand for data is on a rise like we have never seen before, and you can't really make that happen on infrastructure that is not going to be able to handle high-speed data. The other slide is talks about how different devices are increasing in this world, but I want to focus your attention on two. One of them is the smartphone, and don't worry about the colors of the charts, and M2M, which is machine to machine. So two types of devices that are high data consuming devices that enable a smart city are on a path of increasing their penetration around the world. And the same can happen is happening in Canada as well. Within devices, we're talking about in 2020, more than 70% of the devices that are going to be hooked onto the internet are going to be considered smart. They're going to be those smart sprinkler systems. They're going to be those smart sensors that you can attach to your road, and the vibration is then communicated back to your traffic management folks, and it can determine the traffic flows that are happening in any given part of the city. So those are the machine-to-machine devices we're talking about. I'm going to actually skip this slide. I've already covered it in a different way. The next couple of slides talk about the actual cities. And each city we realize has a completely different context. So what we are not saying here is that we should do exactly what Toronto is doing or what some of the other cities are doing, but it's good food for thought. In Toronto, Bell has made a $1 billion announcement to connect fiber, and that, of course, is very much business-driven on behalf of Bell. In Peterborough, we are talking about Peterborough, which is a small city, as we all know, is using this as a differentiating factor for them to attract businesses and retain talent. And again, at a Canadian level, we're talking about Stratford, Ontario, also talking about broadband. But I think it would be suffice to say that in Canada, we do not find one leading municipal example that has already been there and done that, and so this is an opportunity for Ottawa to perhaps take a lead. The next slide talks about Edmonton, where TELUS is making the investment. I already mentioned about Calgary. Vancouver, we're talking about in select downtown areas where TELUS and Shaw are going to provide gigabit service, and same is happening in different parts of Montreal as well. You know, where we find really interesting examples are outside Canada. And we're talking about places like Chattanooga that we have had some interactions with, where the utility of Chattanooga is now providing internet, 1 gigabyte internet service to everybody's home. And this is a city, because of that investment, Amazon and Google and Volkswagen are making billions of dollars worth of investment. So we are seeing that not only residents become happy when you have that type of service, but also you attract a lot of businesses with it. Let's talk about the city of Ottawa, and this slide is, as you know, the mayor's favorite slide. 5 cities that are well known in Canada can fit in the size of Ottawa. And this is just the point that we want to make, that for a city the size of Ottawa, smart city applications become even more relevant because you have to deliver your services in such a large area. This slide here is about the kinds of speeds that we currently get in Ottawa. And what type of speeds are we at the city of Ottawa able to take advantage of. And again, I think most of you already know that we do not have ubiquitous, broadband, gigabit network in Ottawa. So, in newer developments, of course, we have some higher speeds, but in most of Ottawa, we're talking about, the previous version of broadband. We also were very interested. The previous city manager actually asked us to go and look at the different types of applications that are currently already happening in the city of Ottawa. And so we interviewed many different departments. Councillor Shirelli mentioned the the Service Ottawa initiative, and that is one example of how, you get your city on its way to be smart. But we found that OC Transpo, for example, was employing CCTV and streaming that type of data back, some time ago. We have seen how infrastructure services, for for example, is using radar images when they are doing some of their pipe detection problems. And we also found out how Public Works is using applications to manage how they're distributing salt around the city during the winter months. So, we have a few examples that we can talk about. For a city like Chattanooga, it was very difficult to make the case for people like Amazon and Volkswagen to come because nobody knew who Chattanooga was. Maybe even today we would struggle where Chattanooga is. But City of Ottawa is very fortunate to have an ecosystem that is worth bragging about. So we have people, we have universities, colleges, we have Hydro Ottawa that is on to the smart grid exercise. We've got CenGen, which many people may not be aware, but that is the leading center of excellence in next generation networks. It's a big collaboration of all the communication companies. We've got things like Canary, which provides the backbone fiber network for universities and research institutions. So, quite an ecosystem there that we could leverage for sure. This slide is only there to acknowledge that the province and feds are now getting their minds around what broadband means. In this latest budget speech at the federal level, they talked about broadband as part of their infrastructure spent, and so we're keeping a close eye to see what types of opportunities may exist for Ottawa to benefit from those programs. And so we're almost at the end. This slide basically is summarizing what we have already talked about, which is that the opportunities are many, but the great thing about Smart City is that there are things that are today not even imaginable that would be imaginable once you have that type of speed. And speaking with Charles the other day, we were talking about how, when iPad first came, very few people would have imagined the kinds of things now a person can do with an iPad, which you could not have when you first saw that device. And so the opportunities are quite endless and in many different areas. And this is the last slide, and here we are putting in front of you some ideas to consider. One of them goes back to putting a focus on this subject. Without that focus, we are finding that cities may not be able to take advantage of it. So create a focus working group to evaluate all the opportunities. We are going to continue ITS and EDI to work with Hydro and Invest Ottawa to bring the ecosystem in Ottawa together and educate ourselves, because I'm the first person to say that we need a lot of education on this subject from the smart people in the city. We're also asking you to allow us to go back and evaluate fully the best practices. What we have done is a very cursory look at many of those best practices, and I think they demand a much more thorough analysis that we would like to do and bring back to you those findings. And we want to do that on a quarterly basis if possible. So that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, first person is the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to start this discussion, I do agree with staff entirely that we should be formalizing and taking those next steps toward becoming a smart city. There is a lot of confusion, obviously, about what smart city means. There's going to be a lot of work to define, obviously, what it is, who the partnerships are that we're going to need in order to accomplish it, and obviously, how does this get funded? Today is not the day when we'll answer those questions, but I do think that it's important that we begin to look at it. And actually, if I may, just with a quick aside, Mr. Bashir, I think there is obviously that difference between a sustainable city and a smart city, but I don't think we're going to be a sustainable city without being a smart city. They're inextricably linked, and I'm looking forward to taking the steps in that direction. Toward that end, I would like colleagues to make a motion at this point. Whereas, in order to remain competitive globally, the City of Ottawa as a G7 capital must be at the leading edge of ensuring provision of modern communication services to its residents and businesses as it does with other utilities. Whereas the residents and businesses of the city should expect to receive municipal services delivered efficiently and cost-effectively. Whereas the private sector in Ottawa is comprised of knowledge-based firms as well as technology companies with high requirements for internet speed and throughput and correspondingly higher expectations of broadband service levels. And whereas various types of smart city initiatives are already happening throughout the city and can be leveraged in a more coordinated effort. And therefore, be it resolved that the Information Technology Subcommittee direct staff to A, establish an Ottawa Smart City Sponsor Group and terms of reference to further explore smart city options for the City of Ottawa, made up of the following members: Chair of the IT Subcommittee, Vice Chair of the IT Subcommittee, Councillor Wilkinson, Director, Economic Development and Innovation, Chief Information Officer, City of Ottawa, stakeholders from Hydro Ottawa, Invest Ottawa, and Ottawa Police, and representatives from the City Manager's Office, Legal Services and Procurement. And B, provide quarterly information updates from the Ottawa Smart City Sponsor Group to members of the IT Subcommittee and Council. That's the motion that I'll put on the table now. I'll put that motion on the table now and look forward to the discussion about it. A couple of things about the motion do give me some comfort. I think the temptation is out there to look at the most recent shiny toys. A particularly exciting vendor presentation comes before the folks who are responsible for IT procurement, and we pursue that without being strategic. I think the quarterly updates back to this committee will help ourselves and will also help the public know that we are working in a strategic way. So I'll put that on the table now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, next is Councillor Wilkinson, followed by Councillor Harder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very supportive of moving in this direction. I don't know if all of you have looked at this, and I really strongly recommend you do that. On the Canada North BIA website, there is a link to the summary of the study that was recently done in that business park that shows the value of technology in this particular city. And it's because of that that a lot of what we want is coming out of this is really needed in order to protect that. The business park is, interesting enough, is probably the strongest it's been in decades. It's growing, it's healthy, etc. But high-tech is very volatile and things can change very quickly. And by moving in this direction, well, actually, it is a huge supporting to economic development for Ottawa. So as well as doing things for our residents, which is really important, will also help develop the economic development, will give our residents jobs and create the wealth that we need in order to fund doing all of this. I'll just give you one example. Yesterday morning I was at a breakfast prompted by the Canada North BIA Association. There's a group called the Autonomous, it's a Center of Excellence for Autonomous Vehicles Center of Excellence that was there, and others. And this was about driverless cars and all of the things that come with that. What was made clear yesterday is by 2020, driverless cars will be widespread. That's not very long from now. And that what they're doing is the technology industries in Ottawa, some of which are in the Canada North Business Park, but others are in some of your wards, has really great opportunities in this particular field. But they need things like the broadband through the city and things, and we know that is starting to happen through Hydro Ottawa, but it needs to be more than that. So setting up this committee to actually do this and to look for sources of revenue, which are not necessarily city resources. We have a lot of businesses here that would be willing to invest in doing this because there is a return on it. And we can do this more quickly if we actually harness the power of our local businesses. So I don't care whether they call it a smart city or not, because that's the kind of a name that's being played around with a lot of people. It's not always very smart. But what I want to do is to have a city that is so technology friendly for our businesses and our people that we can say that this is a technology center for all of Canada. We have the largest high-tech business park in the country. We have some of the most productive businesses in the country, and we have to take them to the next step, and this will help us do with that. So I'm very supportive of what's happening there, because I also, along with Councillor Harder, sit on the board of Ottawa Hydro. I have been aware of what they're doing in this field, and bringing the two together to work together. I mean, the only way we're going to have this happen is by having these partnerships. So I really want to commend staff for bringing this forward and for the research you've already done on it. I hear about this from all the time with people in my community, and it is, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for Ottawa. So I'm very happy that we're going to be moving forward on it and support it 1,000%.
Councillor Harder.
Okay, so my question, the first question I had was going to be, who do you see as the membership of the Smart City Working Group? And I haven't read it, but I heard some of it. Does it include Mr. Lazenby, who's in the audience today?
Yes, Councillor.
On Best Ottawa.
Councillor Weeper, did you want to clarify?
Pardon?
If we could just let Councillor Weeper clarify, I think he wants to amend the motion.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. There has been some discussion about the composition of the group. I think I'd like to put out there right now that if we can take it as an amendment to the motion to remove the composition of it, pending further discussions between the chair and our staff, to be brought to the next committee meeting for vetting.
Yeah, well,
So that'll get us underway, but we can take a look at the composition.
Okay, I came here specifically for this item today, and I have attended with Mr. Lazenby and Mr. Bashir's staff events with smart cities and leading smart cities, small and very small places. I hope that we're not looking at this as we're just at a startup and that we're just starting off, and that this is going to be some unwieldy process that is going to take forever to get up and running, because I think that what you need to do is have just the right people at the table to start with. This is too big a list. It really is. You know that OC Transco is doing stuff. You know that the police have an interest to do more and all that sort of thing. But really, the people you need around the table that are the ones that already get it. And I would suggest that if Councillor Tierney has time to be on it, as having been a leader on the IT file for a long time, that he would be a person. But you need to have people that already get it. They're not going to get it. They don't need to be informed. I'll give you an example. One of these sessions that we went to in Toronto, out of that, it seemed natural to talk about innovation. And our system doesn't allow us to do things quickly here at the city. So on innovation, what is innovative about this new planning application? I very much wanted to, and Vice Chair and I called them from Toronto, and I said, hey, listen, this is really great because it's going to put us forward as a smart city. It's going to be another step. It was an easy step. We can't do that from a governance perspective until mid-governance, okay? Because it would have to be maybe on all the committees, which is crazy. So we don't have the ability to react. We have an invaluable asset. We're the shareholders of Hydro Ottawa. You saw up there 285 kilometers that they're putting in. We now have finally, since 2006, have given them the control over all of the streetlights in the city and all that we know that can happen with that asset as well to make us smarter. But the people that you're thinking of having here, it's going to be slow-mo. You've got to have the right people. It's got to be a tight group. Charles, I'm looking at Charles. I'm looking at Bruce. I'm looking at Saad, and a couple others from the committee, I think, that actually get the ball rolling, that understand it from day one. Not, well, we've got some business community, we've got some businesses, we've got all that kind of stuff. Then you can have your working groups for each specific tentacle, and they can be doing their thing, reporting back. But if you get a lot of people, you're going to go nowhere, and it'll be the next term, and it'll be the next brilliant thought that we have in the next term of council. So I caution you that the best way to go is to keep it small with the people that have already been engaged in this, have been pushing hard internationally for this, because we're not creating, Christmas here. we're not the founders of the Easter Bunny and the theme drill that goes along with it. Other places are doing it, and the smaller ones that are doing it smartly, right? They don't have the ability to have the connections. We have so many assets here, but our number one asset to get out of the gate is what Hydro Ottawa is doing. So this doesn't need to be a long time coming, like many things that we do around the city and have for years. We tend to get so inside our organization. I had a conversation with Mr. Bashir this morning just on something else. Absolutely ridiculous for a G7 capital. I'm glad we're having the discussion, but as far as I'm concerned, it's one we should have had a while ago. So thank you, Chair, for bringing this forward. And I hope that you consider what I said. I hope that the rest of Council understands we don't all have to be part of this, but it's our time, and our time is now, and actually our time was yesterday. So I think that Hydro Ottawa is at the table. Right? Thank you.
You can still urge us. Okay, Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you. And I'm not sure if I can go ahead and ask Saad some questions directly related to his presentation prior to the motion, if that's okay, because I thought it was a great presentation. First of all, I think there's a lot of councillors that do go out to a lot of different presentations and conferences and see really neat, cool ideas. I'll tell you one that I did see in Halifax was related to what you were kind of alluding to, garbage cans. Smart garbage cans. So I went out to Halifax and I saw a solar-powered compacting garbage can called the Big Belly that will send back information to the city when the can is full, eliminating the need to go check the can all the time, or if it's overflowing that, it's unsightly, to be able to get it picked up. We brought that forward, Councillor Al-Hubli and I, to staff. And unfortunately, it went nowhere. We were actually hoping for a pilot or something to happen just to see what would happen. How do we, in your opinion, address those kind of neat, smart city-style ideas? How do we get those into the pipe as councillors?
Councillor, we 6 months ago very quietly launched an innovation pilot program, IPP, and received over 70+ applications from people who have technologies that are perhaps a bit before commercialization, that are truly unique. And already we are proceeding forward with about 6 or 7 of those. We haven't even gone through all the 70+ applications. So anytime now somebody says to me that we have an interesting technology that we should test, now we actually have a mechanism. Previously, before this IPP program, we sort of hid behind the procurement bylaws, but now we can actually use this program to pilot something for 6 months. If we like that technology, then we can make it part of a future RFP. And sometimes for those small companies, a letter of reference for a city like Ottawa would be a big deal for them to succeed. So many small startups in Ottawa are coming to us just to get that letter of reference once they've impressed us with that technology. So I would be happy to follow up on that company that you saw in Halifax.
And this is very good news. This changes things dramatically, because I think a lot of municipalities do want to move ahead. This isn't unique to Ottawa, but we get mirrored in the bureaucracy and the red tape, and if this is going to help cut that, we're going to get that much smarter, that much quicker. So.
Right, and just to mention that IPP is a joint program with IT, because it's so technology focused, and we get their expertise involved. And we're finding that a whole bunch of departments are now coming forward to us and saying, do you have a technology that can solve such and such problem? Because now we have a program.
I want to commend you for the great work that you and your shop, and Charles, the way you've coordinated is working quite well. And in regards to the motion that Councillor Leeper put forward, I think there's a lot of really good items within that. It's unfortunate that we're all kind of reading it together. I know my colleague George beside me also has a big technology background, and we all want to play a part in this. And I think Councillor Harder really alluded to the fact, if you have too many cats in the room, you'll never move forward. So I do support Councillor Leeper's amended motion, to remove the membership out of that at this point, so we can have a more fulsome discussion about it and determine who's best to serve on that group, to make sure that we actually start doing some stuff, tangible stuff that people can see in the city. Thank you very much.
All right. Anything else? No? All right, so back to the motion and the mover.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So the amendment that I would propose, as I just worked through some quick wording, is that it would read, establish an Ottawa City Smart Sponsor Group in terms of reference to further explore smart city options for the City of Ottawa. Let's get this underway today, with the composition to be determined after consultations, with the composition to be determined and proposed after consultations between the Chair and CIO as an amendment.
Just on the change, rather than, we don't meet that often, and to make sure things happen, I would hope that staff would start with the other people on it and get things moving. I don't want to have 2 months of nothing happening. I think what Councillor Harder said is very appropriate, and you could do some interim work on that with the coming back to the committee to finalize things at that meeting would be the best way.
Okay, and we may have a very brief meeting sometime earlier than planned, just to, depending what comes up.
Yeah, but I think we want to get moving on this because there are actions that are starting to happen within the private sector that we'd need to tie into.
Yeah. Okay, so on the motion, all in favor, it's carried. No dissents. Now, I did want to point out that we did not actually dispense with the status update report under item 1, so if we could just deal with that now. Were there any questions? No. All in favor? It's carried. Received. Item number 3, portfolio management framework for managing legacy technologies. Councillor Wilkinson.
Just talking to staff, because this is something we went over with the last meeting a lot and all that you're doing on that. This is on the portfolio management of trying to update our tire systems and everything else. So are you on target on moving that forward? Because I know that you were trying to reduce the number that you're dealing with and things. So is this starting to happen? Because this report is very useful in saying the types of things you're moving forward on. I'm just not quite sure if we're completely on target and what the end objective will be, say, by the end of this year, will we have most of this cleaned up and the ability to simplify our system and maybe that way not clutter our computers so much and things?
Yes, and that's the objective of this program that we have. It's a strategic objective for us, is to look at the legacy applications, and we have to manage legacy applications. Every organization will have old or legacy applications, but it's how you manage those applications that are important. And of course, we haven't been actively managing them for a while, so we've got a backlog of issues that we have. But we have made significant progress with it. We've eliminated, I think, 45 legacy applications so far, and we've got a plan to manage the rest of them going forward. So I have Anna Beattie here who can lead us through the presentation, and you can see where we're at.
I think it would be worthwhile seeing. Thanks.
Okay. So Anna is leading the application portfolio framework, and she's been driving this program, so she'll give us an update on it.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and councillors. How do I... Perfect. I need assistance. APM is a framework for managing enterprise applications. It's a proven methodology for managing IT application assets. Application portfolio management provides staff with an inventory of the organization's software and metrics to illustrate the business benefits of each application. The City of Ottawa has a number of legacy systems. Legacy systems are software applications, hardware, and networks that are beyond or at their end of life cycle and no longer supported by the vendor. and which continue to operate and rely on aging IT infrastructure. These systems place considerable demand on resources responsible to support the ongoing operation and maintenance of the applications and related infrastructure. Legacy systems also create ongoing risks and challenges to the ITS department as the main line of support, as well as the business who relies on technology to enable service delivery and day-to-day administration. To be effective, APM must be integrated with IT demand management, project approval, and lifecycle management processes. The APM practice will support the city's IT governance process by helping to identify systems which present greater IT strategic investment, high value, and transformative projects. Application portfolio management will also provide a framework to monitor applications and associated licensing, reduce the number of application failures and outages, and most importantly, mitigate the risks associated with maintaining a portfolio of applications that are nearing end of life or no longer providing benefits to the business. This diagram is a context diagram to help understand where APM fits and how it will support both enterprise risk management and the IT risk management framework. As part of any enterprise risk management framework, there are multiple components, one of which is an operational component. IT risk management is a subset of the operational component of enterprise risk management. In 2015, the Auditor General tabled an annual report which included an audit of the information technology risk management for the City of Ottawa. As part of this audit, a recommendation was identified to develop an industrial strength IT risk management framework and a robust governance component as part of the ITRM that aligned with the enterprise risk management framework. Our CIO has committed to the IT risk management framework by Q7 of 2017 and the governance component by Q4 of 2016 as part of the IT transformation plan. Application portfolio management is a foundational pillar of that transformational plan. The application portfolio management framework will support the IT risk management framework and governance framework with components that will govern the evaluation and response of applications through their life cycle. This diagram is another concept diagram to show the application portfolio management life cycle. Any request for new applications will come through the IT governance process, which is identified on the upper left corner labeled BTC. Once approved, the application will go through the system's life cycle, depicted by the numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the top portion of the slide. The application will then be implemented into a production environment. The APM framework manages the application lifecycle by classifying and reclassifying into categories labeled invest, tolerate, migrate, and eliminate, depicted by numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7. This classification scheme is based on a best practice model defined by Gartner, which is a leading information technology research and advisory company. The time model was utilized for classifying applications and adjusted for the city's use. As indicated on the previous slide, application portfolio management has 3 components: governance, evaluation, and response. The red ring labeled APM governance, which is a small g governance, not to be confused with IT governance, applies through the application portfolio management lifecycle. Applications are continually continually evaluated and reclassified as dictated by the APM methodology. The blue half circle in the diagram depicts the evaluation process of the application, and the green half circle is the response. Appropriate action is taken relative to the application's classification or reclassification. Daily decisions are made relative to the application portfolio, including measuring risk, which sometimes results in reclassification. When an application is reclassified, information is fed to the BTC. In some cases, this information is for transparency only, to ensure the BTC departmental stakeholders are kept informed. In other cases, it's part of the intake mechanism for IT governance. In exceptional cases, decisions will be escalated to the executive committee. In order to understand our targets, as mentioned in a previous slide, we've used Gartner's time model to categorize the application. This slide identifies our target percentages in each category. So, for example, our investment category definition includes any investment associated with keeping applications current. According to the city's target for the invest category, we've identified it at greater than 60% of our portfolio. Our target for the tolerate, migrate, and eliminate categories combined should be less than 40% of the portfolio. When we started this program 2 years ago, our focus was on the elimination category. At the time, the applications in this category represented 21% of our portfolio. There were many legacy systems that presented significant risk to the organization, and since then, we've successfully reduced this number to 5%, which is well within acceptable ranges. The city's invest category is currently 29% of our portfolio. Industry norms dictate that we should be at greater than 60% in this invest category. Conversely, the city has greater than 70% of its applications in a decaying or an unacceptable state, which when industry norms indicate it should be less than 40% combined. Considering that the eliminates represented 21% in less than 2 years ago, substantial progress has been made in reaching an acceptable area, an acceptable state in that particular area. Although this is simply a snapshot in time, and we're still in discovery mode, the absolute numbers will change in each category. The tolerate, invest, and migrate categories, as you can see here, are significantly out of whack. This causes a bottleneck because resources that should be deployed against investments are actually focused on areas not worthy of that level of investment. Ultimately, this means that the city is investing a significant margin to keep the lights on while under-investing in innovation. Application portfolio management is the foundation to addressing this out-of-balance condition. These are the next steps to institutionalizing application portfolio management, with a particular emphasis on continuing the activities related to the rationalization and elimination process, beginning with 12 additional applications this year, and adding any newly identified elimination candidates through the discovery process. Enhance and formalize the classification framework. Our initial work in this area was somewhat subjective. Our focus was on the eliminates. We need to review this classification framework and put a higher value on measured risk. We will continue to refresh the application inventory with the new classification framework, implement a dashboard with reporting capability, and ultimately update the risk register. For our next steps, we will continue to work with the Business Technology Committee, application owners, and executive leaders within our organization, outlining options for applications. We will continue our efforts on the APM framework and report back to IT subcommittee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, Vice Chair.
Thanks, and thank you for the work that went into this presentation. I know behind the scenes that IT has been doing a lot of work on this, and it's critical. Just maybe for the sake of those of us who may not be so much in the weeds, in a few bullets, what are the risks that we are attempting to mitigate? What are the consequences if we don't undertake this exercise and get it right?
Right. So a lot of the applications, this chart, I think, says it all for everybody. We're being directed more and more to do innovation. You see Smart City coming. Just about every company that you want to talk to out there, high tech, is looking to the new world that we're in. I think from what I've seen in technology, I've been in it for a long time, never has there been such a disruptive period as this, and I mean an order of magnitude that I've never seen before. This is 1,000 times different than it's been with the introduction of PCs. This is just, we aren't even close to understanding what's going on or ready for it. And what we're seeing is all of these companies moving forward. Mr. Tierney, I know you've been looking at it as well and pushing hard in this direction. And what's happening to us is we haven't been managing the old applications to get on with the new stuff. And what's happened is we actually have applications that have no owners. For example, we gave birth to something and then left it. And then IT is left to care and feed it, which costs us money to be able to do it. So without an owner to say we can get rid of this, it's difficult to get rid of it. Some owners have just abandoned it because they gave birth to it and then figured that they either don't have enough money to update it or replace it. And so the real impact here is without managing this, that you just simply can't get on with your innovation. So that's why we're putting a very big push on dealing with these applications.
Thank you. It does carry a huge opportunity cost when we have those applications that are held together with chewing gum. The piece that I'm not sure if it was in here in some of the depth, it strikes me as critical as we move forward that before people build new apps that are going to become potentially ownerless, as you've put it, down the road, one of the critical exercises is going to be to get us all internally on the same page, so that planning department is working with IT, so that Parks and Rec is working with IT, in order to ensure that we're building apps that are going to be well supported moving forward, and we're not building things that will be orphaned with that significant opportunity cost down the road.
Exactly, and that's why we created the Business Technology Committee. So they are representatives from every department. Everything that we give birth to goes through that group to ensure that it does have an owner, to ensure that we do have governance on it and we do have proper project management on it, which includes not just giving birth, but you have to go back to it, reevaluate it in 2 or 3 years to say, do we need to invest in this? Do we need to eliminate it? Do we need to give something new?
Yeah, if that mechanism works, hopefully we don't get to this point again.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duffett.
Thank you. Councillor Tierney.
Great. Thank you, Charles. I think we've had some really good discussions, and you're right, we don't want to get in the weeds. We sat down for quite a while and went through a lot of those weeds. And to Vice Chair Leaper's point, you know, a lot of people want to go out and develop a new application rather than going with a COTS, a commercial off-the-shelf product that could be adapted or configured, that could be upgraded. And I know we've had the discussion, this is kind of the direction that you want to go in, where we're not supporting something that's been developed specifically for a department that, frankly, if somebody got hit by a bus, you can never redevelop again. You're stuck. It's a costly application that's holding us back. I find myself doing a bit of a facepalm on occasion when it comes to even applications like in our recreation department. We've talked about this since I've been on council in 2010 about the issues with class, and I know we're trying to break away from it. I know this is all front burner for you. I'm just wondering, how do we see, and then you showed me a very large list and support the direction you're going in about eliminating a lot of those silos, the spaghetti diagram. How are we going to know what our progress is? How are we going to see some progress? Because we've talked about it for a long time, for 5 years, and when we think we're making progress, we really don't know what those numbers are. Yeah, you showed me the numbers, but how will we reflect that as some kind of milestone or barometer that this committee can actually see where we're reducing, where we're actually making things more modern, where there's not going to be costs of support?
Right, and that's the Councillor, that's an excellent point. I noticed that when I first get in, if it isn't measured, it's usually not done, and you can't prove that you've done anything. So we've put in our governance process, in the business technology group, it will be reviewed once a month, and we will review there what progress are made, and all of that information will be available to the council members.
Great. Thank you for your hard work, and I do appreciate the time. You've met with me a couple of times now and really given me some insight into what direction you want to go in, and I think you'll most definitely have this committee's support, and we look forward to reports back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Councillor Wilkinson.
First, you mentioned the orphan items. How do you get rid of them?
Well, we have to go and find an owner for them, first of all. So someone gave birth to it, so we got to go back and find the parents who gave birth to it, and then figure out a way to put it through the governance, through the Business Technology Committee, to decide what's going to happen with this application, and then how we're going to fund it and move it forward.
And if going back you can't find who brought it, you just go to the committee and say, I mean,
if nobody wants it, then I can turn it off.
Okay. Because if you turn it off and somebody complains, you'll find out who the owner was.
Then you find out who owns it. That's it. That's exactly it.
Because I think those ones probably take up a great deal of your time, and I think that as soon as we can get those ones cleaned up, not your time, but probably your time too,
yeah, exactly.
It would certainly speed things up quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And the other thing is, I mean, we've got a lot of expertise in the community on all of these types of things, and I know you do talks and various things, but are you actually using the brains, not necessarily the products all the time, but the brains of people to help you that are outside of the city?
Yes, we're on a lot of groups outside the city just to take advantage of that, the expertise that they have. And they also have solutions that we can deploy here as well. So working with SODS Group, Economic Development, we've started, we really need to be able to do proof of concepts, pilots, and solutions with our local vendors. There's a lot of great solutions as we move into the Internet of Things. And so we're working in that. We've created an innovation role to work with SODS Group to do exactly that.
Okay. And the proof will be in the pudding, of course, but your timeline is pretty tight. At the end of next year, we'll have all of this in place, and some of it at the end of this year.
Correct. And it's looking pretty good. I think we're on schedule. And
are you still looking at how we use the cloud and various things of that nature?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The cloud will be very much part of the solution going forward. Again, as the industry moves forward and they're moving to the cloud, you don't have a choice because there are no other products other than what's in the cloud if the industry moves there.
It also saves quite a lot of money.
It can?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No? So on the item, it's carried as... Okay. And on the previous item, I don't think we carried the item as amended. We passed the amendment but didn't carry the item as amended, so carried as amended. So on to the public washroom app. We have delegations. Yes. So we'll do the delegations first. So the first delegation is Joan Kwiak, chair of the Gotta Go campaign, or I should call it the successful Gotta Go campaign.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It's really a pleasure to be able to come and say thank you very much today to this committee and to the staff who've worked so hard to make these apps possible. We're delighted to see that they've happened, and we see this as the first step in making sure there really is a good network of public toilets in Ottawa. It'll give all of us a picture of what's possible and allow us to see where there's toilet deserts, which I think are going to show up pretty quickly. We've got just a few comments, and I'm sure the staff will be willing to work with this. I'm not sure how possible all of them are, but we'll do everything we can to make it happen. The first is, can it be linked to the OC Transpo maps so that people who are on buses or waiting at park and rides will know where the nearest toilet is? I understand it would be possible to show the toilets in a different way if they were not actually open at the time that people were trying to access them on their smartphone. So they could be faded out a little bit, they could have some indication. I was thinking of red and green and then realized that wouldn't work for people who are colorblind. But I understand that's possible. We're a little concerned that there's no marking for unisex toilets, especially considering that there's been such an outcry around the continent, actually, recent years, about the need for gender-neutral washrooms. I know family toilets are marked, but I'm not sure that people who are looking for gender-neutral would understand the same thing. We were delighted to see there's going to be a paper map. As a senior myself, who stumbles around with my smartphone from time to time, we're all happy to see some kind of paper version of it. But the other thing that's needed is wayfarer signage, and I was delighted to see that that's being assigned to a committee in terms of providing directional wayfarer signage. I hope that gets followed up. And the other issue that's of concern to us is that the accessibility standards 0 to 3 are pretty gross in terms of trying to decide what you can do if you're in, for example, a motorized wheelchair. And I'm not quite sure how to make that better, but I'm sure that the information about what it means could come up at the same time as somebody clicked on the toilet. And Braille seems to be missing as one of the accessibility standards. So we're just absolutely thrilled that this has happened. I spent 3 weeks in Seoul over the Christmas holiday and was blown away by how wonderful their toilet system is and how well signed it is and how easy it was to find toilets everywhere. And I'm sure that Ottawa is now on its way to being a city like that can be very proud of its technology. If it's going to be a smart city looking after the most basic of our needs, seems to be something that we can do very well. So I thank you again very much and look forward to working with you on these issues.
All right, thanks a lot. We'll go to questions if there are any. No? Okay, well, I do want to say that, in the last election, during the campaign, your group started out with the effort, and I know when people talk about you at the beginning, it usually started with a lot of chuckles. But through the campaign, it got to be taken much more seriously. And now I think we see tangible results here and over at the light rail section as well. You're going to see some significant movement. So just wanted to congratulate you and Sarah as well, who was helping out a lot. Pass that along for us, and thanks very much. All right, Kevin O'Donnell.
just going to start my timer because I like to go on. Thank you, everybody. What I wanted to talk about today is actually some of the technical details about how, and it's referenced in the report, about how the public washrooms are pulled together and what that means for me as someone who likes to write third-party apps and a member of the open data community. One of the interesting things that I found is, well, first I want to say that staff have done an amazing job. It's an onerous task to go visit all these facilities and catalog them. I can't imagine how much work that is, and they're to be applauded for pulling that data together. That's the kind of thing that only cities and governments can do is go out to that widespread area, the favorite chart of Ottawa being bigger than all of the other cities in Canada combined, and pull that into a single coherent database. That's something the city can do, does well, and should always be applauded for when we pull it together like that. So that's my first comment. What I was really happy to find out and just discover by accident with my other hobby is when the public washroom database appeared in Ottawa, the online mapping system, where the city records all of its geographical information. Location-based data kind of really belongs in the ESRI database. That's its primary function, and it does it very well. And I was excited to see that data appear because then I as an IT worker, I decided to do some homework and just improve my own skills and learn how to program in ESRI directly, which is how I was able to create the OTP database to begin with, the website that is referenced in the staff report, which is really fun to see. The thing I want to say is I really think the city is sitting on perhaps a smart city opportunity where the city has already invested in the Ottawa platform for its own purposes, for its own cost-saving and efficiency purposes. And I think the city would do well to encourage third-party app developers like myself to leverage that data in its own right, where it's sitting in Ottawa. The city in this report talks about how the washroom data that belongs in or is kept in Ottawa to begin with is then also copied out and placed in the open data portal, which it should be done because a lot of people will come to the open data for the first time through the portal and they'll see it there and they can use it. But one of the benefits of encouraging people to use Ottawa as the primary place is, for instance, in OTP. It feels really ridiculous to say that out loud at committee in a serious place, but I have to keep doing it. The benefit there is, for instance, if there's a renovation going on, as I'm sure is happening across the city constantly, and one of those washrooms becomes unavailable, I imagine there's some waterfall process in the city where someone, a building manager will eventually tell someone in the GIS department, hey, turn off my washroom because it's not available. And the minute that last piece of communication hits the GIS team, that washroom will disappear from OTP that very minute. If someone opens their phone and looks at it, that washroom is gone. Or even the accessibility rating has changed from a 3 to a 2 because the power button is out, or the ramp is now 5 inches instead of 4, or all those kind of things that the city knows very well and none of us even understand or comprehend of how complicated it can be. So encouraging people, opening up Ottawa as a confirmed open data platform, that if you can target it and use it, then go for it. I think we'll see a lot of follow-on benefits. OTP is just one example. The Planning Committee recently received a report about the development applications widget that ESRI and the city IT team, I'm not quite sure who did, created. I was happy to run in and recreate my own copy in the same way. And that widget has now been adopted by the Fair Winds Community Association, because that's a very useful tool of, I just want to open a map and see what's around me as far as development applications goes. That data, that's a great example of open data that's already been created in a planning department silo. The development application exists. I don't think a lot of people knew it was there. Now that team is dumping that silo into Ottawa, and now all sorts of people are able to find it. To my knowledge, I don't think that data is then getting into the open data portal, but that's another example where Ottawa as a coherent system of data can start to be leveraged and made available to third-party developers. In a way, it's already available. I managed to open the magical door and found this beautiful room of data. And I just encourage this committee or council as a whole to just promote it. Just say it's there and encourage people to go find all of the gold that's in there and see what interesting things they can do with it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Kevin, and I think you are one of our 2013 Apps for Ottawa award winners. You've done some great work. I'm seeing some nodding of heads, and maybe if it's okay, I'll just ask staff, can you provide feedback on what Kevin has said in relation to Geo Ottawa being kind of a home base?
Yes, absolutely, Mr. Chair. The Open Data Program would be very supportive of that addition to the Open Data Program in terms of the ability to access that data. The actual technical and being able to do that, I'd have to defer to our CIO around if that's feasible and doable. So I defer that to Charles.
All right. Other questions? No? All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
So now questions to staff. I think Councillor Leeper had asked to be,
Just to pick up on Mr. O'Donnell's point and full disclosure, he and I work together closely on a few different projects, sometimes on a paid basis and sometimes on a volunteer basis, taking advantage of the IT expertise he has to the benefit of our residents in Kitchissippi. With respect to his specific ask that there be greater promotion, that this tool is available. And I think he made it clear there is a treasure trove of data waiting behind what I think he called the closed doors of Geo Ottawa. Would you be willing to take it as direction to make that effort to make that more broadly known to particularly the app developer community?
Mr. Chair, absolutely. We'd be happy to do that. And actually on our work plan this year in the Open Data Program, we have a component where we're really looking at how do we increase the presence of the Open Data Program and the marketing of the Open Data Program. So with the access to the Ezra data is a component of that. We'd be happy to include that as part of that Open Data Promotion Program as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
all right. So on the items that received. I should point out that it was the goal of the committee when we dealt with the washer map initially to indicate that we would be creating the app, but also throwing it open to the community to come forward with other apps. And if they were to come forward with other apps, then we would be able to just take advantage of those, and that's what's happened. So that one worked. All right.
We do have a small presentation, Mr. Chair, if you'd like to demonstrate how we've used the data in current web assets, or we're happy to just receive the presentation. It's at your desire.
Go ahead and do that then.
So we'll be relatively quick, but this is a very exciting day and an exciting way for us to actually promote a program of open data and really to be able to join our colleagues in the community. Joan, who's here today from the Gotta Go, who's identified a community issue and a community problem, and really to show the value of being able to take a community problem and bring multiple departments together to work on a solution, and then put the organizational supports into that solution so that we can be effective in meeting residents' needs. So we started just in terms of the direction from the subcommittee, and I'd really like to stress the importance of getting this direction, and the foresight of council to be able to understand that this issue is going to take multiple players, resources and effort, and to prioritize that in the organization so that we can work together on a scheduled timeline to get that solution out to the community, and really reinforces the value of an open data first look at how do we support the private sector development community and the open data community to have first dibs at responding to community issues and community problems. So we're really excited to show what's the result that actually occurred as a result of that. So when we look at the open data program, when you think about washroom data and where it exists, there's a significant amount of effort led and supported by our Community and Social Services Department and included Public Works, IT, Parks and Rec, Library, Police, and Service Ottawa in terms of collecting all that data and the attributes. We had to define and agree on the attributes of what would be included in the data, which public washrooms whether they would be in leased buildings, which they are, where the city is the principal tenant. Does it include a portable washroom in a park, which was a new addition? And I know the Gotta Go campaign has been impressed with the fact that we've moved so far as looking at portable washrooms, whether they were opened and whether they were staffed, to make sure that the washrooms that we publicly display to the community are actually going to meet the needs of the community as they search for bathrooms. And then to look at if it's seasonal, the hours, the accessibility definitions, which we've worked with the accessibility office to do, and telephone numbers to report issues. So this is a significant new addition as well, an organizational to support the open data, because now when people go to the bathroom, they can report issues and they can have a central place to be able to get resolutions should we need to deal with the data, as well as the status of the washroom. And then really taking the open data and putting it in standard formats that the development community can use to develop the apps, some of which you're seeing today, and new forms that the community would like to see, which Kevin has mentioned here as well today. So currently we have 125 data sets, and this has been an addition to that data sets on the Open Data Catalog. I'd like to introduce Robert Giggy, who's our manager of our Open Data Program, one of the strategic initiatives of Council that we're continuing to build and develop as we move forward. And he's going to show how we've taken the open data, put it out to market, but then also used the web tools and web assets that we have within the city to provide a number of different options for residents, depending on what their choice is, their mobile device, or their preference in terms of location and how they access that data. So over to Robert.
Thank you. Good morning. I'd love to do a live demo for you, but we'll have to stick with screenshots for the morning. So I'll talk a little bit about what you would see, and of course, these are available to you if you want to go take a look. So the first two I'll show you are ones that the city created. So we leveraged GIS systems already in place. The first one being on Ottawa.ca. So if you look at our map section, or if you Google Ottawa washrooms, or you just Google washrooms on Ottawa.ca itself, you'll find the map. It is a mobile-friendly map, so these are actually screenshots from my phone. So you'll see that the features of this one, you'll see that it is mobile-friendly. People can bookmark this, so it opens up right away. It geolocates you, so it can zoom in to where you're located at the time. You can visually see all of them on a map, or you can see a list view of them. You'll be able to see all the features of the washroom, so the hours that it's open, the accessibility features. It's also, of course, fully bilingual, and it's fully accessible, so it meets the provincial AODA legislation. That's Ottawa.ca. We also released it in My Neighborhood. So In My Neighborhood is a pre-existing tool. It has many data layers to it, so people can go to In My Neighborhood and see who their elected official is, where the local parks are, the rec facilities, emergency services, hospitals, schools. So we've added washrooms to this. It works much the same way. So there's the version that works great on your computer, but it also works great on your phone. You can see the facility attributes. You can zoom into a location. It can geolocate you so it knows where you are. And it's also fully bilingual and fully accessible. So those are what the city's provided, and we just leveraged the tools that were already in place, and I think we've delivered something that somebody could pull up on their phone real quick or use on your computer and see where the washrooms are and the attributes of those washrooms. So with the open data, of course, we are hoping that people would use the data. There's many pre-existing applications out there that are just do this. They help you find washrooms. So after we released the data, we did reach out to several of those, and some of them have already taken up the data in a matter of a week or two, and there's some more pending that have said they'll be doing it in the near future. So I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what's the features of these. So Bathroom Scout, this is something they have 1.3 million facilities worldwide. So not only will it work while you're here in Ottawa, but if you go to other cities, you'll be able to find the washrooms there. That way you just have the one app. It has hundreds of thousands of installations already. You can get it on iPhone or Android. There's free version and paid versions. You can see it on Street View. You can see the map. You can see a list. You can get down to Street View if you're trying to find directions. Users are able to rate locations. They're also able to add locations. It does have accessibility indicators on it, and it's multilingual. It's available in English, Spanish, and Chinese. The next one was created by one of our public delegations, Kevin O'Donnell. He mentioned it, otp.ca. So this wasn't pre-existing. He created this because we released the data, and he actually, you heard about his discovery of the data, he actually released it, but before we promoted it being available, so he picked it up right away. It is mobile friendly. You can also bookmark this. It knows where you are. It geolocates you. It provides the opening times, whether it's seasonal, and just yesterday, upon request, he added the accessibility rating of the facilities. It is a great example of a local developer pulling our data, using it to improve their community. I think it's a great example of part of the reason why we're doing open data. The last one I'll show is Toilet Finder. This is another one. It has hundreds of thousands of locations worldwide, hundreds of thousands of users already. Toilet Finder is actually available on Apple and Android, but they've also made it available on Microsoft phones and on iWatch. So it's something I just realized. So for those with iWatches, it's actually probably a handy application to add. If you're out walking around, biking, cycling, running around, you can pull the locations up right there. You can also see the map view, a list view. You can rate locations. You can add locations. You can see where they're located in restaurants or public or shopping centers. And they do have an accessibility indicator there. And this application is available in English and French. So I would say that in addition to these specific where's a washroom applications, there's lots of apps that features washroom data in it. So there's running applications, cycling applications, tourist applications, navigation. So think of Garmin and TomTom that have a bunch of kind of icons on their maps. And we'll also be reaching out to those to see if they want to pick up our data and include it, which provides value to their users. So with that, thank you for listening to the presentation, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, good work. This has been a problem for a lot of people for a long time, so thanks for providing the relief. To Councillor Weeper.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Really briefly, are the apps that you've demonstrated generally free to the public, or is Mr. O'Donnell going to become a rich man in the near future?
His is certainly free, as are ours. They have a mix of models. So typically what you'll see is, like with any apps, they have some with advertising, and then they're free. Some have paid models. Something like what Kevin's done, he's just offered up his website, and anybody can go visit it. So it is a mixed model. But there are absolutely free versions available for the devices.
Councillor Wilkinson.
I'm really happy to see how the open data is working. I know the struggle we had to get city staff and council to approve it in the first place. I have just brought up the Ottawa map. I can't find the washrooms on it. It's not listed under the more layers. Or
I can respond.
Or is there some other place
So it's actually, just to not confuse terms, it is in my neighborhood. It pulls from the Ottawa database that they were talking about. We haven't added it as a layer in the Ottawa map, simply because of the use and the functionality of that site. We found the washrooms to be a better fit for the individual map we created and in my neighborhood, as opposed to a layer in Ottawa, which we do try to keep to the use cases for Ottawa, which has a lot of infrastructure layers.
and sometimes under city facilities, they're one on top of the other, so they're pretty hard to read, yeah. So you have to actually, if you're using a computer, you can't use the Ottawa map, you have to go to the other.
You can go to In My Neighborhood right now,
Yeah.
or if you just Google Ottawa washrooms, our map will show up, and it uses their platform they call Ottawa Lite. So it's like embedding a Google map.
See if it comes up.
Okay, Councillor
Show
Weeper.
results for Ottawa washrooms.
Okay. All right, I think we're good on that then, so. Pardon? Okay, so items received? Received. Thanks very much, everybody. Next on the agenda, inquiries. None. Other business? None. Adjournment? Oh, sorry, notice of motion? None. Adjournment? Carried. We're adjourned.
It doesn't come up when you put it just in for a search. No, I know. I did all washrooms, and it gave me all these things, but it doesn't include the city. So this is a generic search. I'm not in the Ottawa.ca.
Yeah, you just did Ottawa washrooms.
But it should come up in there.
Yeah, when I Google Ottawa washrooms, it comes up.
The gotta go one is that.
Yeah, so it does come up on my Google, so I guess it's based
But because
on
you've used it before.
Yeah, maybe because I've used
But
it.
why it should be.
We would want it to show up on Google, and maybe after it gets a little more traction.
Look, it's just a good Ottawa bike store.
If you go to Ottawa.ca and type in washrooms.
I'm sure Ottawa.ca would do it. But people.
So we can look at adding it to Geo Ottawa, but we do have Geo Ottawa. We have a lot of technical users.
Oh, yeah,
because it's so complex.
It's very complicated.
Use our search and just search washrooms, it should come up. So it is coming up for some people on Google. Just missed it.
But they're not going to get the city. Oops, I spelled it wrong.
Yeah. So right there, the second link here.
Look at the top one that comes up.
Yeah, I know. That came up yesterday. It's a new document that they've added.
Now that's what I find in this one. They don't. If you have a very specific name, you put it in, it still doesn't come up first.
Yeah, and we're working with publishers to do them. Sometimes they don't create content in a way that works well with search. So right now it shows you the whole map. You can zoom in and out. There's a geolocate button. So if you were on your phone, for example, but even here it'll locate where you are. So you can zoom in. And then you'll be able to click on one of them.
How do you move it over?
If you want to just move around, you can click and pull.
Click on what?
Oh, it should be pulling it right now.
It's not. Oh, there it is.
So if you
I'd rather go to my own ward and see what I find.
yeah, okay, of course.
Not very many.
Yeah, we're wondering if that question was going to come up about how many are out there. So we have March and Carling.
They've got the library here and the Richcraft Recreation Center, and that's all.
Yeah, there might be, no, there's no police station, the library, there's a park, and then that must be the old Canada, that must be the service center, and I don't know what we have in the town center. It'll say what location.
Probably it's on this side. It's this community center, it's the religious center. What does that say?
That's for a park, so it'll be a portable location.
Okay, so I know there's a porta potty here, and the porta potty there. Yeah. The one we had over here got destroyed by the kids.
They did it? Yeah, so there's nothing up for, so it is,